Hey everybody, it's Shaman Sister Sin, and you're listening to the Meditations and More podcast brought to you by littleshaman.org. That's me, the Little Shaman. Today I'm going to talk to you about ending narcissistic relationships and how to make it okay for yourself. It's not unusual for many people to feel immense amounts of guilt whenever they try to walk away from the narcissist in their life, and I thought we could address that on the show today. Pathologically narcissistic people are very adept at projecting their faults onto other people. It's a very complex defense mechanism to explain, but on the surface, it is simplicity itself. The essence of this behavior is, I know you are, but what am I? This creates the feeling in other people that they are solely to blame for the problems in the relationship, and that if they would only try harder, they could finally win the love and validation that they have been promised but have never received. It's compounded and reinforced by the fact that when they do capitulate, when they do give in to what the narcissistic person wants, things sometimes seem to get better for a little while. This is how people become conditioned to take the blame and to give in. It's the path of least resistance the majority of the time. If you just do what they want you to do, there's no problem. This sense of responsibility makes it very hard to walk away from the relationship because, unlike relationships with other types of people, narcissistic people refuse to take responsibility for anything that went wrong, even things that were blatantly and clearly their own doing. There's no closure, no resolution, and no way to end amicably most of the time. Narcissistic people feel rejected and abandoned by the relationship ending and are unable to assume any responsibility for the way things have gone. They will rage, detach, give the silent treatment, create smear campaigns, make threats, anything except give people closure. This, of course, reinforces the idea in the other person that it's all their fault, and if they just tried a little bit harder, things could have worked out. It's a very seductive idea, but it is not true. What you've gotten from the narcissist is likely all you would ever get. Sporadic episodes of kindness or relative calm followed by trauma, drama, abuse, detachment, and whatever else they dish out over and over again. This is the cycle, and without a complete overhaul of their entire mode of thinking, learning entirely new ways to relate to people and all new coping mechanisms, it will not change. Luckily, they might not be able to do those things, but you can. Narcissists are also very adept at forcing other people into taking responsibility for their feelings and their needs. From the day the relationship begins, they condition the other person or people that the sun rises and sets on their emotions, and it's up to everybody else to make sure these emotions are cared for, catered to, and that their needs are met. There is no room for other people in this equation, and the dynamic often turns into one where the other person takes on the role of a caretaker or a parent more than anything else. There is no partnership, there's no equality, there's no family. There's only a screaming ego in the center that must be appeased at all times or things are going to go badly for everybody. Because of this caretaker dynamic, even if it's subtle, people often feel extremely guilty about leaving. They feel sympathy for the narcissistic person, and they have been conditioned over time to believe that all of the narcissistic person's needs are their responsibility. These things can make walking away from narcissistic relationships of any kind very difficult. It can be traumatic and painful to separate yourself from the enmeshment and the trauma bonding with a narcissistic person, even if you no longer even like this person. It's an addiction to the cycle, but it can be broken. We create what we know, and when we know better, we do better. We can learn to create boundaries and only make decisions that reflect a healthy level of respect for ourselves. Now, when you decide to start practicing better self-care and create boundaries in the relationship with a pathologically narcissistic person, there will often be problems, sometimes really big ones. The relationship might even end, either because they've crossed your boundary and you leave the situation, or because they decide to discard you because, to be perfectly frank, dealing with people who practice healthy self-care is usually not something narcissists are interested in. People who practice healthy self-care are not good targets for narcissists. If you are going to truly take care of yourself, you have to accept that this in all likelihood will include the narcissist's exit from your life for whatever reason. You have to find a way to make this okay for you. If you don't, it probably won't last, and you'll find yourself right back in the same situation again, either with that narcissist or another one, trying to fulfill whatever need you were trying to fulfill in the first place. Narcissists are attracted to your empty spaces. They are attracted to your wounds, like a shark smelling blood in the water. Whether that's conscious or subconscious on their part doesn't really matter because it's just the truth. Making it okay for yourself usually involves really internalizing and understanding that you are not responsible for this person's feelings. You are not to blame for their failures or their problems, and you are not required to fix this person or their life. These ideas are not the truth. They are the result of conditioning. The relationship with a narcissistic person is a type of mental slavery. Mental slavery is defined as a state of conditioning where discerning between freedom and enslavement is twisted. It's a state of mind where a person becomes trapped by misinformation about the self and the world, and the relationship between these two things. You have been conditioned to believe certain things about yourself, to do certain things, or to shoulder certain responsibilities. You can break out of this conditioning by challenging it. I do have a few episodes on the show about challenging your thinking, so check those out if you're interested. So much of what people believe is just a habit or a reaction, even regarding themselves. People have a tendency to accept their thoughts as facts, but they're really not. We all have our own coping mechanisms, and most of the time, what people are truly conditioned by is not the narcissist or other type of abuser, but by their own feelings and their own mindset. This is actually a blessing in disguise, though, because it means that they have control over it and therefore they can change it. Challenging default attitudes and knee-jerk reactions leads to living more intentionally. People live so much of their lives on autopilot. So the next time a stressful situation comes up or something that upsets you, ask yourself, why do I believe this? Why do I think this? Why am I feeling this? Why am I saying this? Get in the habit of challenging your thoughts and your beliefs. This helps to tune you in with your reactions to things, many of which you might even be unaware of. Once you raise your awareness of your reactions, you can learn to control and change them. A lot of times, simple awareness can be enough to diffuse these things and take away their power. You can even tell yourself, I don't have to react that way anymore. I'm not that person anymore. What you tell yourself matters a lot. When you identify what triggers reactions in you and why you react to things the way that you do, you can take the power away from these things. Anger and fear are powerful motivators, for example. How much of what you do or say is the result of anger or of fear? Do you maybe agree to things you don't want to do because you're afraid? What are you afraid of? For example, let's say someone is putting up with abuse because they are afraid of being alone or unloved. They don't want to end the relationship because deep down, maybe even subconsciously, they feel that an abusive relationship is better than no relationship at all. Losing the relationship would damage their self-worth more than being abused, or so they believe. Familiar pain is easier than the fear of change. But when we take fear out of the equation, we see that this person is not avoiding what they're afraid of. They're still unloved. You don't feel loved in an abusive relationship. So the question is, why is being abused and feeling unloved preferable to not being abused but alone and feeling the same way? Behind that question is the real question. Why is this person's self-worth so tied up in other people that they feel they have to sacrifice themselves this way in order to be loved? Because it's almost never about the narcissist in the end. Not really. In the end, it comes back to you. The only thing you can do anything about is your part in the situation, in any situation. You only have control over yourself. You can't change other people's behavior, but you can decide you're not going to allow it in your life anymore. The truth is, narcissists for the most part exploit issues and fears that people already have. It's a hard truth, but it's an important one. Yes, the narcissist has issues, many of them. But so do you. So does everybody. If you didn't, the narcissist games would not have been so effective. You wouldn't have accepted the abuse or doubted your own intuition because you know that there was a point in time where you said, okay, this is not right. Once issues have been identified and acknowledged, they can be accepted, addressed, and corrected. As the great Bob Marley once said, emancipate yourself from mental slavery. None but ourselves can free our minds. There is no stronger prison than the prison of the mind. I hope this clears a few things up for you. As always, I look forward to your comments, questions, and suggestions, so please keep those coming. I have begun taking appointments online or over the phone, so if you'd like to book an appointment with me, the Little Shaman, you can visit littleshaman.org and do so. You've been listening to the Meditations and More podcast brought to you by littleshaman.org. That's me, the Little Shaman. May the Great Spirit bless you and have a wonderful day. Emancipate yourselves from mental slavery. None but ourselves can free our minds. Have no fear for atomic energy, 'cause none of them am, I can't stop at a time. Won't you help me sing these songs of freedom? 'Cause all I ever had, redemption song.